who is obviously Gary V's right hand human over at the agency there. You've got, Oren Clef has said this is genius. Grant Cardone, Damon John, everybody says, hey, this is brilliant, that you're brilliant. So I wanted to talk to you again because we talked last time. We talked about brand intervention on my old show.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to have you back.
Absolutely, man. No, it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm super pumped because we're at a point, I think, in culture and in business and just the way things are done, that there's such a reliance on things being automatic and things being, we can kind of, turn this lever over here to do that or do that, that the human, the impact of humanity on businesses, I think, has been underestimated, in both positive and in both negative. Like when it's implemented, it has an amazingly powerful ability to all of a sudden, why do people love doing business with this company? And it's like nobody could quite put their finger on it because there's not like a bit of software. There's not a funnel that they're going, there's not a this, there's not a that, and then the ones that people repel, it's like, it's like when you and I are put on a little call a business and we put on a menu tree. And after about 15 minutes of that being asked everything from our blood types to our, our hereditary connections to whatever else, that we get an actual person we want to kill them. But these things undermine us and undermine brands.
So is that why you did that? What was the sort of impetus for sort of the follow-on book? And I love how you sort of played off Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm guessing that's where that came from.
You're very, very spot on. Very spot on.
But what do you mean by? First off, what was the reason? And then I'd love to know what a poor brand is. I'm curious. That's fascinating to me.
Totally. Well, first of all, so the thing is the short answer is that brand intervention really answered. When I started brand intervention, there were 6,500 books on the topic of branding. When I first started writing, by the time that my book was published and it had reached bestseller status, all this kind of stuff, it was inching up. And now today, there's over 25,000 books. If you go to Amazon right now and you type it in branding on books, you will have over 25,000 books just on branding. That's on branding. But that's the branding part. That's creating a brand. My question was, what are the cultural traits, the qualities that exist in a culture that's capable of sustaining and maintaining the brand that you built in brand intervention? Right. That's basically what this does. And the thing the way I structured it is that at the end of every chapter, it says rich brand and poor brand. And just to give context for those that don't know it, we're looking at, that's the size of the type, guys. That's right. It's like, it's normal. A normal book has 12-point type. Mine's 36-point because I don't believe in wasting your time. I actually respect your time. Your time is, you put trust into me in purchasing the book. Now you're going to put further trust by actually spending time reading the book. So I'm going to make it worth every freaking minute. But the thing about it that's fun, I treat it as fun because, like, for example, here's the table of contents, and just so you can see. So it's like, and so it's just, right? And like, that's the table of contents. And the contents are like things like the secret sauce for sustainable growth, fanatical intention, the power of love, others are the solution, not the problem. Is shrinkage your enemy? And yes, Seinfeld fans, it is what you think. And true expertise versus bullshit. And I don't care WTF the piano sounds like, which actually was an interesting story that shows the resilience necessary to it's not easy creating great brand, and it's not easy maintaining a great brand.
Right.
And if you've got everyone on the same page with the same set of criteria and the same traits, you will be able to withstand the ebbs and flows of business. You'll be able to withstand and not have the short-sighted look. And I was just speaking to somebody on this particular point. Like you asked about rich brand, poor brand. So like one chapter is called Ideas Have Direction. which was something that I realized when I dealt with business. It's like everyone has ideas. There's no shortage of ideas. Now, some ideas are good. A lot of ideas are shit. And some ideas are, by the way, repeating what you're saying many times does not make it smarter or more valuable. Right?
That's right.
And so we've all encountered that, so we can call it for what it is. But the interesting thing was that I looked at the organizations and brands that did the best. Like, there are ideas that go inward, which is like, hey, what's in it for me? Right? It's very insular. It's almost, to an extreme, it would be narcissistic. So, okay, that's ideas that go inward, but then there are ideas that go outward. Well, let's look at a team, and I don't care whether that team is 2 people, 5 people, 20 people, 100 people. Okay, if you have a room full of people, a culture where everyone's like operating inwardly, it's like, what's in it for me? What's in it for? How healthy do you think that organization and that brand is going to be? Versus a brand, and that would be an example of a poor brand. That one.
Okay.
Example of a rich brand is a brand. It's like, okay, it's outward. It's like, I show up in order to add value to you and you and you. And those are people internal, as well as you. I don't consider the customer an asshole. I don't consider
an inconvenience or
an inconvenience or a pain in my ass. It's like, what? Excuse me, I was on my way to eat my 3rd Snickers bar. How dare you interrupt me?
Yeah, we've been there. We've all been there,
right? So,
what are some well-known brands that you can sort of give us an example of that?
I mean, I would say, there seems to be, in general, a good healthy culture. If you look at Apple, at least at the retail level. I have not been inside the Apple space, but I mean, just looking at their output, I'm like, okay, that seems to be impressive.
Right. You walk in, it's efficient, it's helpful, it's clean, it's right. You use the
H word. You use the H word, helpful. When was the last time? And I'm not trying to throw Best Buy under the bus, so I won't mention their name. So when was the last time you went to a store that sold electronics and appliances, and you actually felt someone come over to you who's actually authentically interested in being helpful?
No.
And so it's why. When did that being a rarity become the norm? My God. Right.
It is what's killed. It killed. I was in the toy business. It's what killed Toys R Us. You'd walk in and it was a ghost town.
And it's unbelievable because I look at that and I was like, if they just said, David, all right, help us turn this thing around, I would have been, okay, first of all, we're going to make it so that this is a wonderland of fun and joy where the kids can come in and actually just play with things, whether they're going to buy them or not.
Look, the small toy stores that survive. I mean, I remember I had a customer down in Charleston, South Carolina, and she had 3 stores, but parents could come in on a Saturday morning and get a cup of coffee in the store or a cappuccino, and the kids could open. I mean, they had toys on the floor. They had toys the kids could sit down and play. They could build, Legos. And guaranteed, they took something home with them.
Same thing with Lego. Look at Legos.
Right. Exactly.
The Lego shops. It's like the kids just go there like, I can look at what I can construct. Oh, can I get this other one home and I'll make that and I'll be like, holy cool. Yes, you can.
It's an experience. It's the difference between an experience and something that feels like to your point, right? That feels like an inconvenience that you're there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And that you're sort of on your own in this vast, warehouse of stuff with half the shelves empty and not being able to find what you need, right? So that's
is it? I mean, but even the viewpoint, but it shows up in little things like this. And this to me, I would hope that those listening would really, really look at this and explore this. It's the difference if your culture is saying, what do we have in inventory versus what do we need to be carrying in order to help and enrich the lives of the people that actually come into our stores? Those are 2 totally different questions and 2 totally different cultures. Yeah. One is operating on a basis of spreadsheets and numbers, and the other is operating on the aspect of how many eyes have we opened, how many minds have we changed, how many hearts have we opened just as a result because we actually cared enough to be interested and to just authentically want to help the person in front of us. When did help become a freaking scarcity? I could talk about this for hours, but the fact that this is where we've kind of ended up in business, that is the rare exception, is very unfortunate.
That's why we don't have brand loyalty today.
It's true. It's true. It's always interesting to me. I say this very intentionally whenever I'm doing a keynote or I'm speaking publicly. I'll say the worst brand in the world is Walmart. And of course, then people go, what? Oh my God, the amount of money they make, blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the deal. You know, and I know, there's not a single customer that is loyal to Walmart. What are they loyal to? They're loyal to the cheap price. If another company
and the convenience because it might be the only store around.
Correct. Well, the fact that you have a 100,000 square foot store and it's got everything that you could possibly need. Right. Sure.
Right. Time. And you go there because of time.
Yeah.
You get everything you need.
But if I got another place and instead of getting that bag of Doritos for 79 cents, I can get it for like 63 cents over here. And I mean, the loyalty isn't to Walmart. The loyalty is the low price. And to me, that's not healthy. Now, it could be better. I mean, the people that I've dealt with in general, the few times I try and make it a habit of keeping my visits to Walmart down to like 3 times a year. That's my tolerance. You know, when they carry something that I'm like, oh, okay, they're the ones that carry that. I know it. But when I interact with the people, you know, it's like I'm not dealing with a high customer experience, right? I'm just not dealing with that. So, you know, but that's that culture, and there's a certain strata of society that's fine. That's all that they need to want. But I'm talking about the companies that want to make a dent in the world, the companies that want to have a legacy, that are willing to be that tight conspiracy that says, you know what, screw the way it has been. Let's do something better. You know, that's who this book is for. The ones that are willing to say, you know what, how high can we go as an organization, as people who empower each other and empower the brand, that operate on a principle of empowerment, not entitlement. Entitlement is that inward flow again.
Right.
Empowerment is an outward flow. Entitlement is an inward flow. It's like, am I being treated nicely? It's like, well, when did this last time that you treated someone nicely without being asked, that you actually really cared? You really said, you know, I'm going to actually recognize and appreciate and respect the humanity in that other person, whether they're a colleague or whether they're a customer. And this is not an HR book, but I just want to say, this is not an HR book, but it's something that I'm passionate about because, I mean, you and I know each other well enough to know I do really love the value that people bring to brands. Yeah. You know, it's not just, okay, something now reads better, it has a better headline and all that kind of stuff. If it's just surface, it's lipstick. Yeah. It's lipstick.
Well, you'll be called out. You'll get called out on that. That's today, right? That you can't get away with that for very long today.
Not at all. Not at all.
How did you isolate the 20 traits that you believe builds a strong brand or a sustainable brand?
Well, basically, I mean, I've generated at this point, I don't know, I've helped clients generate like over 9.8 billion, which cracks me up because I didn't go to business school. I didn't get an MBA. I came from the school of, I saw what people responded to. I saw what lit them up, you know, as customers, as people and stuff like that. And that's the stuff that you feel it, you know it. And it cracks me up because that's when I've had this conversation with our wealth advisor, our financial advisor, and they go, David, you know, I say, well, I want to invest in this, you know, this company. And they're like, well, David, you know, historically, you know, what goes up normally comes down, and you're looking at it on its up, and and they're parroting back to me what they were taught in their financial education. And I said, I know what you're looking at, but let me tell you what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a cultural impact. I'm looking at how this company, how it's changed. I mean, like, for example, like Netflix was a brand that I decided to invest in. And when I made that decision and I announced it to our financial advisor, I said,
Do you thumb your nose at them a little bit?
now all the time. Now every time we get together, it's like I walk in and they're like, how bad is he going to rub our nose in it, right? But the thing is that I said, guys, there's something happening culturally. They're like, what? I said, there's a phrase that came out of one company. It's called binge watching. Binge watching was because Netflix decided they didn't want to do what the networks did and make us wait week after week after week, but they would drop a whole season, pump, and people would binge watch it for a whole freaking weekend. If a company can literally change the culture of how we consume entertainment, as well as even inject a new phrase, I said, I'm investing in that company. And all I can say is it's done very, very, very well. But that's an example. So I've been doing this for 45 years. That's right. For those of you listening, that means I started when I was 3 years old. Don't you think anything else? And so the thing is it's just looking, taking the time to slow down and look. I mean, there's one thing I cover in the book. I talk about like how to see around corners. And this kind of answers your question of how was I able to basically kind of isolate these 20 traits. It's looking at the micro shifts. All of us will hear about, the big disaster. Well, there is no big disaster that occurs without prior mini disasters or micro shifts. It's like, all of a sudden we have a rebellion on our hands, or all of a sudden we have a whole dissatisfied, set of customers, or we have competition. Well, you weren't watching and listening to the micro shifts. If you listen to the micro shifts, you will actually be able to, quote unquote, see around the corners. And people go, how the hell did you know that was coming? Because you're not waiting for the big freaking tsunami of shit to hit the fan. You're actually going, wait a second. Something's shifted. Something's different. What is that little difference? What caused, not like, what is that concurrent with, but what caused that? What brought that into existence? Was there a cultural change? Was there a technological change? Were there different things? But what I go over here, I don't go over anything in the book that is based on a technology that you or I see coming down the pike. You've been in business long enough. I've been in business. We've seen ebbs and flows of things. Yeah. We've seen stuff to go from vinyl to cassettes to 8-tracks to freaking CDs to digital distribution to digital streaming, and that's just music.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all that shit's happened in business. All that shit's happened with people. All that shit's happened with how we deal with each other, and all that shit's happened with when there's funnels and there's this and there's this. There's all these things. All of those are little mini trends. I don't talk about trends. I talk about the stuff that underlies all of those. That is that you and I can actually actionably put into place tomorrow. We can literally say, okay, we're going to work on every one of these traits. All right, we're going to start with this one. We're going to get this in this week. We're just going to make sure this is in and just sort any ways that we can't apply it, get it done and get it in. Good. Then we do the next one, do the next one, do the next one. And they're beautiful because all of a sudden, you are amongst friends who actually, they've got your back. Mm. You're amongst those who they're not going to take an idea and just play devil's advocate because that's the only game, the only dance they know how to groove to. But they actually, it's like, I'll sometimes play a devil's advocate, but we're going to make it very clear. If I'm playing devil's advocate, it's because I want to make sure that person is going to be the best version of themselves and not dilute how freaking potent they are. Because if there's anything destroying any company, it is us undermining ourselves by underestimating the impact we can truly have inwardly to the company and externally outside of the company.
Is this, let me ask you this. These principles, you're saying, take them one by one, do it one by one and implement them. Where are people going to get stuck here? If I'm an entrepreneur, I'm listening to this, I'm watching, I've got maybe I'm a medium-sized business, $5, $10, $20 million business. But I understand now that I've got to and I want to work. I want my company to be sustainable. I want my brand to be sustainable as I grow it and as I build it. Where am I going to get hung up here?
I know exactly where you're going to get hung up. If someone's going to get hung up, this is where it'll happen. Thinking that external factors are going to be determine how well the group can get on with one another, how well they can adopt and embrace these traits, how well they can push themselves, and underestimating how far they can go. I mean, like, for example, like there's something that I do. I think you've seen me do it a few times. The brand audits. Like, I do brand audits, live brand audits. I've done them virtually, and this past weekend, in fact, I did them live. I had a whole weekend workshop, and I did 8 live. Now, guys, for those that haven't seen this, there's no freaking safety net. Okay, I'm looking for the first freaking time. I'm looking at someone's brand projected onto an enormous screen with a room full of 150 other people. I got no place to run and hide. I can't screw it up. I can't go, oops, that wasn't comfortable. Let's go to the next one. And then I get a nice participation trophy or something. Okay. It's like not the way it works. It's like there's no safety net. And I'm going, okay. All right, let's take a look at this. I've done it long enough to know that there's people, the proximity that business owners have and CEOs, their proximity to what they have. You know how we're always so brilliant with it. Someone else's a problem, but we have to solve our own. We're kind of like, all of a sudden our IQ drops by 80 points or something.
At least.
And so
minimum.
Yeah. And so the thing is, all of a sudden we're like, okay, we're into the single digits of an IQ. This is not looking good. And so, well, that proximity factor is interesting. The thing that can happen is that I am ridiculously optimistic of how amazing we can be. When I look at someone's brand intervention, I'll tell you, like, I stood in front of the room. This is right before I did, I think, the second to the last brand audit this past weekend. And I said, guys, I know you all believe, as I do, that you can be right. And they were like, yeah, we believe that we can be right. I said, great. I'd like to introduce you to a new skill. You can be wrong. And everyone laughed their asses off because too few people are just that direct with equanimity, right? Like a level-headedness. And so I just say, so let's take a look. So let's take a look at this brand. I pulled up the thing, and totally fine organization. They have their logo in the top left, and then they have their logo in the middle, and then they have the name of the brand again, big. So they just used up all this real estate to basically remind me, hey, by the way, if you didn't get it the first 2 times, it's going to remind you a third time where you are. I'm like, guys, I know that you know who your audience is. I'm telling these people. I said, I know who you know who your audience is. This is a specific, very, very niche market. And I said, so use your real estate to do this and to do this and do this. And then there was something that was said that had to do with an FDA warning. And I said, what are you selling that's FDA based? Well, we have one product out of maybe 20. One product. So I'm like, guys, I said, now I don't even know. Am I coming here for a service or am I coming here for a product? And so these just few things. And so as soon as I said it, they were like, duh. So again, but I was there to give them something actionable that they could walk away from, that they could correct immediately and see and have a better situation. But that comes with experience. It's like, what I can do, I've literally had people say, well, you can do in 10 minutes. I haven't gotten this much value out of my agency in the last 6 months that I'm paying a retainer to. I said, I know. And it's okay if you want to write me out a check right now. That's fine.
Well, I think I still owe you a check from the first time you helped me.
I remember that. I remember that. That was a good one. That was good.
So you, we were talking a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about this, and we've got only a few more minutes left. But you're talking about this internal memo from Nike, and I thought that was a really interesting thing that we should, talk about. Talk about how that sort of that memo. I mean, you were impacted by it.
The memo is amazing. It was from 1997, and for those that want to see this, if you go to risingabovethenoise.com, you go to my blog and you'll see the article about the internal memo. But basically, it was an incredible memo that basically had about 10 points, and it really was. It outlined the spirit and energy of Nike, the defiant, resilient, the unapologetic, just persona of them and it wasn't even persona. I hate using that word because that word that's become kind of like a marketingism, word. I don't mean it in that way. I mean,
it's like ethos. It was an ethos, right?
It was totally an ethos, And I said, because the bottom line, I concluded that, the memo inspired my new book on branding, because if you're not attacking the market, you're losing to those who are. And so that's why, when I saw that, I mean, it's just like they said, one of the points is assume nothing, make sure people keep their promises, push yourselves, push others, stretch the possible. I love that. Stretch the possible.
Yeah, I like that.
Right. And so, it's just, that's the spirit of it. And it was from a 1997 confidential internal memo, and it's in the article. You can see it there. But that inspired so much of what the book Rich Brand, Poor Brand is about, because I literally have teams of companies that have already said, we're buying 20. We're going to have with our entire team to get everyone on the same page. Because if you've got a team and you get them all operating with these 20 traits, you will double, triple, quadruple their impact and power, because they're a united front. They're not, you're not dealing with the small little internal the bullshit. Just it is a bullshit eliminator. But then when you have a brand that has that much kind of, if you have that energy, we shop at places that have that kind of energy. We love watching teams that have that kind of energy. It's contagious. It feels good. We refer friends and family to places like that because it's so damn rare.
But we like it's a winning ethos. It's a winning ethos. It's like what drives a championship, football team or basketball team or baseball, right? It's that attitude. Is a winning attitude.
I mean, what would be your feeling if you walked into a place that you were kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to get backstabbed today, or or maybe thrown under the bus, or maybe have a little bit of unnecessary bickering with somebody just because they might not be in a good mood, versus you walk into a place and you're like, everyone's got my freaking back. And this is the most important part, and I have everyone else's back.
Yeah, I mean, it's a got your back culture, not a watch your back culture, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a formula for a winning team, a winning organization. I mean, period.
Totally.
I mean, and we know that. I mean, that's where everybody is on the same page, and everybody has a single mission, right?
Yeah. And just on that point, Damon John, he had one word to describe the book: genius. And CEO from KnowBe4, they're like about a $4.6 billion client of mine, said the roadmap to keep our brand and team winning and relevant. But that's the feedback that this is getting. It's resonating because it's not just chasing today's trends. It's actually getting to the bottom line stuff that keeps groups thriving.
It's the fundamentals under all of it.
That's right.
Right. It doesn't mean that you don't do funnels. It doesn't mean that you don't use the tools that are available and the data that's available. It doesn't mean that at all.
No.
It just means you get the fundamentals right. Right. You build these. You build on these sort of basic. They're not basic, right? I guess.
Well, they are. I mean, they're fundamental building blocks.
Right.
But they're the real ones. They're the timeless ones.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, okay, hey, this is the trend du jour. This has been trending on the New York Times bestseller list for the last 6 months. So buy it now. It's not like it. No, there are things that are timeless that impact our lives and impact the lives of others and build legacies. I mean, you can't freaking build a legacy on
Well, to your point, you attract talent. You're building an organization that attracts talent, keeps talent, right, and is functioning as one. And I think that's the whole key is if you do those things right, you'll get the rest of it right.
Totally.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, man, I hate that we are out of time. This is Bestseller Live. We are live this week from Lisbon at Web Summit. David, it has been a pleasure. The book is called Rich Brand, Poor Brand, How to Unleash Your David in a World of Goliaths. It's right there in front of you. Where can everybody get it?
You can get it. You can get it at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. You can get it in Books A Million. You can get it any place online. And I would just say, you get the hardcover, because if you ever see me in the street and you're like, hey, David, I bought it, and here's the paperback, I'll look at you and I'll say, what about Rich Brand? Don't you understand that you chose the paperback version? Because you already know the people are going to freaking, the people are going to borrow, quote unquote, from you and never return it. And so the thing is, when they touch it, if you hit them with a paperback, then they're like, that person's heart isn't in it. You hit them with a hardcover, all of a sudden they're like, holy shit, they mean business. That's what I mean by rich brand versus poor brand. Right there. There's your example. So be rich. Wednesday.
And for those rich that want to bring you on, can people hire you to help them? What's the deal there?
Absolutely. I do it all the time. And I love building great brands. I love building great brands. I help startups become millionaires. I help millionaires become billionaires. And it is a freaking joyride. It is a joyride. So yes, if I can help you, if you're like, hey, our company actually, we don't have some of this mojo. We don't, whatever he's putting in his coffee, we certainly don't have some of that. Well, I can help you with that.
I bet you can. All right. This is Bestseller Live. I'm Rep